Sir, your question?
Hi, I'm Jay Shane, and this is a difficult question because I want to educate myself. For the people here supporting you, which I obviously do, feel so bad for, how come places like Harker, and when I go to theaters, they always say we're on this land, but they don't give the land. So how does that really help if they're just passing the problem to somebody else?
That's a great question for the Stanford archaeologist.
Yes, land back.
I love this one. So Stanford has, what, 8,000 acres?
8,200.
8,200, okay. But we just can't find a square patch of anything to give to any Native people. I'm sorry to say. I'm being very facetious there. But what I'm saying is that the will to do so, people are very concerned about this. They believe that if you give a tiny little bit of land to Native people, the whole facade of colonialism will collapse. It's ridiculous. It's just a tiny little plot of land. Look at the state of California has what they call surplus land. It was never surplus land. It was transferred from tribes to the federal government in the 1880s with this thing called the Dawes Act, where all the Native people were counted up, given 40 acres and a mule, and everything else was liquidated, transferred over to the federal government in one of the largest land transfers and wealth transfers in human history. 183 million acres turned over to the federal government that then gave it to states. So when we say the states don't have, UC Berkeley can't find a space to repatriate or rebury, there's thousands of ancestors collected from those shell mounds around the bay, we should be outraged. We should, just because things are the way they are now, doesn't mean they have to be that way in the future. We don't have to accept this as the status quo. Why don't we ask Gavin Newsom? Why don't we ask the UC Regents to do that? Why don't we ask the president of Stanford to create a space that isn't just a place for Native people to come visit and collect things and then go home? That's convenient to us, and I don't think that there's any pain that Stanford would suffer from being a little bit generous. I'm going to get canned probably after this.
Do you know who the largest landowner in the homeland is?
No.
Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District.
There we go. Let's put them in the
Santa
fire,
Clara
too.
County, 40,000 acres of parkland.
Wow.
Right, so I would agree with you that Stanford has a responsibility, but we, the citizens and taxpayers,
Yeah.
whose taxes are going to Mid-Penn, whose taxes are supporting Santa Clara County, we already have land, right, that we could be resettling Muwekma Ohlone people on. And so there is land, but there needs to be political momentum, there needs to be honesty about what the forces are that are preventing this from happening, and there does have to be consensus that it's time to do it. And I'm concerned, as Charlene is, that as things become more and more and more expensive here, that it really is time to restore a homeland for Muwekma. I would be happy if Stanford did it. I'd be proud if Stanford did it. But there is land that we as citizens already control that we could be doing this with.
I think there are, good-intentioned people, that want to do the right thing, want to give land back. I mean, recently, we just had an ancestral village site in Sunol uncovered, and that's where we did our DNA analysis from that site there. San Francisco PUC has 35,000 acres of land in that area. And, with these staffers who have, the good intention to give us something, want to do that. But it goes back to the timing and the politicians on top to make this happen. When my mother was the chairwoman, she was the chairwoman for 40 years. She met with Feinstein many times about our restoration. And she told her, I don't want a gaming tribe in my area. I also met with her, through her staff, I met with her staff twice. They both remembered my mother 35 years before I showed up. And Feinstein said she doesn't want an urban tribe. So I'm thinking now that things will start changing, that, you know, the politicians are coming out of these places of power. New people will come in to make that change and make the change happen for the people here in this area.
I just want to give a comment about land acknowledgements. So people make fun of them. Stanford students kind of goof on them, and they're deadly serious documents that are read. Because without those acknowledgements, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I'm just telling you. Because everybody has to hear that. Everybody has to come to a realization that, wow, you mean there's somebody here? That kid when I was 20 figuring out what's the name of the tribe? I can't avoid that kind of ethical and moral dilemma any longer when I know that there's a name, that there's a group, and that there's work to be done. So the land acknowledgements are really, really important. These statements are powerful. They're transformative.
Sir, your question?
Hi, yeah, I'm interested in the language of the Muwekma. I'm sorry, I forget the name, but how many speakers are there currently, and are there any efforts to protect and spread the language? Thank you.
Yes, our language was revitalized in 2002 with 4 council members, and they are active speakers, fluent speakers. We have about 6 members that are very fluent Chochenyo speakers. And we are working, because of COVID, we started having Zoom sessions with the young people who want the language. So we're carrying that forward. And they actually were able to create a dictionary too, and carry the language forward.
Sir, your question?
Sure. My name is John, and I have a daughter who goes to school here. We're also members of the Shasta tribe up in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel your pain. The process of trying to get recognized is very painful. And I'm curious to know several things. One, if you think it would be advantageous for unrecognized tribes to sort of band together politically. And I think part of that benefit might be with the edict that Gavin Newsom did in, I think it was September 2020, where he's talking about giving land back to Native people. If you're, I'm sort of curious if your recognition as a federal tribe would make you less qualified for getting land back through that. And there's also a sort of related issue where Gavin Newsom has this goal of having a certain amount of land in California dedicated to, I forget how it's phrased, but he's wants it to go back to sort of more of a natural state, like a park or something like that. So those are kind of a lot of questions there. And then another question, if you have time to get to it, is what is your biggest couple of challenges to get federally recognized? Is it like the other Indian tribes? Because the process is completely messed up, where if you're trying to get recognized and they actually allow neighboring tribes to kind of input and they could block you, it's just totally ridiculous. Because our neighboring tribe is a Karuk tribe, and they actually have a casino in our territory. So
That's exactly what's happening today. It's actually gotten worse for Muwekma because of our neighboring tribes. We have our gaming tribes closest to us actually spending millions, donating to our local politicians. How is that? It's insane to me to think that they're donating millions to our politicians to stop our efforts. There would be no other reason why they would be donating to our local politicians other than to stop Muwekma from recognition, because the way they see us is as a threat, economic threat. We live right here in the Bay Area, and they use this fear-mongering thing with the politicians and everyone else in the community, is that all we want recognition for is gaming, and that's furthest from the truth. Our people have always focused on the priorities of protecting our sacred lands, protecting our ancestors. UC Berkeley is making the first ever effort, I can only just say effort, to repatriate thousands of our ancestors, hundreds of thousands of burial objects that belong to these people. We cannot repatriate them because we don't have federal recognition. And we have to ask our neighbors who hold us hostage whether they want to help us or not, repatriate our people and put them back to the ground where they belong. They hold us hostage. Since I've been the chair for 5 years, I've been asking all our relatives who are recognized to help support our effort for repatriation. And they've ignored me. They say, no, we can't do it because of their constitution, things of that sort. And so we're held hostage by our politicians and the gaming tribes who have power to help support our effort to repatriate and also help support the effort to restore our status. I wish they would come together with us because I keep saying we're stronger together. As people, we are stronger together, not apart. But they are, I'm sorry, they've become like the colonizer. They are oppressing their own brothers and sisters with greed and money and possessions. And recently, last year, actually, there was a coalition, California coalition, that was created by the unrecognized tribes to come together and work on issues like education, repatriation, and recognition issues. So there's about 100 of them together working on that.